Well, welcome to another episode of WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rolark Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper, and I am so glad you decided to watch WIN TV today with us. We have a great show for you, and before we get started, I always want to ask and say that I hope you've had a chance to pick up your copy of this week's Washington Informer. Great content in here, folks, and the bridge as well. So pick up a copy of the Washington Informer. If you don't know where to get a copy, you can go on to our website at www.washingtoninformer.com. And there would be a list of places where you can get the newspaper close to you, or you can read the paper right there online. So make sure you do so. And if you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we will definitely follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. We want to make sure that you get a chance, that you don't miss any of the great news that our great team of reporters and photographers, videographers, and all folks that work for the Washington Informer team, that you don't miss out on the news that we write for you every single day. Used to be week, but now it's every day. So before we get started with our program, we want to watch this week's newscast brought to you by Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters.
Thursday could potentially mark a historic day for the U.S. Marines, as for the first time in its 246-year history, the Marines could have its first black four-star general. Lieutenant General Michael Langley is due for a confirmation hearing before the Senate Armed Services Committee. And if confirmed, he would lead all U.S. military forces in Africa as Chief of U.S. African Command. Langley also has served more than 35 years in the U.S. Marines and has assumed command of the U.S. Marine Corps forces in Europe and Africa. The Bowser administration announced Friday that a nearly $4 million grant has been allocated to the Anacostia Business Improvement District to support the creation of the Anacostia Arts and Cultural District in Ward 8. The grant will help fund new events and programs to engage neighborhood residents and bring visitors to the ward. Other investments include streetscape enhancements, as well as an expansion of the Anacostia BID, or Friendly Logistics Operators Team, to support a clean and safe commercial district. Noel Christina, executive director of the Anacostia BID, said, quote, "This grant will help us amplify the creativity and artistic innovation that has always existed in Ward 8 and create a vibrant place that speaks to the community and visitors alike." Democratic nominee Wes Moore has declared victory on Saturday to receive the Democratic nomination for Maryland governor. A few hours before, Moore and his running mate, former Delegate Aruna Miller, spoke to supporters in Baltimore. Former U.S. and State Labor Secretary Tom Perez conceded as he sat in second place by 27,000 votes. Perez commented saying, quote, "I congratulate Wes Moore and Aruna Miller on their hard-fought victory, and that now is the time for us to unite, and I look forward to aggressively working with them to flip Maryland blue this November." Moore, if voted in, would be the first African-American gubernatorial candidate ever to be elected in Maryland. The Senate on Wednesday approved a sweeping package aimed at boosting domestic production of computer chips and helping the United States stay competitive with China. The package, known as CHIPS Plus, now heads to the House, which is expected to pass by the end of the week and to be sent to President Biden for his signature. The centerpiece of the package is more than $50 billion in subsidies for domestic semiconductor manufacturing and research. The package also includes tens of billions more in authorization for science and research programs, as well as for regional technology hubs around the country.
Well, thank you so very much, Curtis. And for our show today, I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the Washington Informer team that stepped in last week to broadcast WIN TV. As you know, I was away, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But I want to thank the folks, Jamila Bay, and was it James? Oh, Jamila. Yeah. Okay. For substituting for me last week. And I know the show was great. So we'll have her back on a little bit later on during this show. But joining us today is Savannah Mitchell. She's the owner of the Sunday Morning Coffee Company. And she believes the taste of your coffee should be smooth, sultry, and sophisticated. We'll talk to Savannah about her road to success. And after that, we're going to talk to my son, Desmond. Desmond and I will talk about our experience last week on a trip we went to or traveled together to Benin in West Africa. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that from his perspective and mine. And today, since it's the last Friday of the month, I'm hosting our Reporters Recap. with Washington Informer reporters Brenda Seiler, James Wright, Jamila Bay, and Sam Collins. So before we get started with all of that, we're going to bring on our first guest, Savannah Mitchell.
Sunday morning coffee. So we are at the roasters today. We want to show you a lot of the back end of what we do to make sure that we are producing premium coffee that have just been imported from our different countries. This is how we flavor coffee. Beautiful beans.
Wow, Savannah, are you there? There you are. That is that. I mean, that is probably the best story I've heard about the travel of a coffee bean, and so I want to thank you so very much for sharing that with us. Welcome to Win TV.
Thank you so much. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here, Denise, and I'm looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, one of the things that we do every week is we tell folks, to once the paper gets out, we send them a link. We do it on our social media channels, and we tell them to pick up a copy. Well, I've always thought the best day to read your newspapers is a Sunday morning, and so I always say, get your Sunday morning coffee and the Washington Informer and start your Sunday, right? So this is a perfect marriage between us here.
Denise, it's amazing because that's actually the very thought that went into naming the company. It is that coveted day, that time period. For a lot of people, it is on physically Sunday. Some people, it's Saturday. But whatever day that is, it's the state of mind that everything is in alignment. You're in a great space, all the stars are shining, and you just want to have quality time with a quality cup of what we call black gold.
Oh
That's
yes,
that
oh
Sunday
yeah.
coffee.
So before we get into the coffee, let's talk a little bit about you,
Yes.
Savannah Mitchell. Tell us who you are. How you got involved in this, where you are, and I think you're here in DC. Is that correct?
Correct. We are
Yeah.
Washington D.C. area. Yes, we are. Sunday morning coffee is my 25-year dream. When I was a little girl, 8 years old, I remember spending countless hours in the evenings and on Saturdays and weekends in the summer playing with my dolls, having coffee and tea parties. That's all I wanted to do. So for every holiday, every birthday, my parents would ask, "Well, what do you want for a gift?" My answer was the same every time: "Mommy, I want a tea set." So I loved having these dinner parties and lavish brunches with my dolls. And as I grew older, when it was time to do career planning in high school, my counselor said, "Well, what do you want to do for a living?" I said, "I don't know. All I know is I love hosting parties for my dolls, and we have coffee and tea every day." And she said, "That's an entire industry." And I said, "No." She says, "Called hospitality." I say, "You are kidding." She said, "No." So I ran to the library because this was pre-internet
Hmm.
and spent the entire weekend in the library. But during the weekend, I had seen a commercial and the commercial showed cherry blossoms. I said, "What's a cherry blossom?" So I went back to the library, looked up cherry blossoms, and they said they're in Washington, D.C. I said, "Let me see what colleges are in Washington, D.C." Because I'm from a small town in upstate New York. There are no HBCUs. And
Hmm.
I saw Howard University and I said, "Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it." And literally in my 10th grade year, I applied to Howard University, did not tell my parents. I am the youngest of seven. And in the second semester of my junior year in January, I'll never forget, got this letter in the mail, and my parents said, "Why is Howard University sending you a letter?" And I said, Mom and Dad, I applied to Howard University. And they said, there is no way.
Yeah.
And we opened the letter and said, congratulations, you're accepted.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
yeah, that was really my entree into the Washington, D.C. area because I had no family members. We had no friends, no relatives, nothing in the area. But Howard University had a full hospitality program, and I took the program, did my internship at the Howard Inn. For those of you who are familiar, Howard
Yes, I remember the Howard Inn. Definitely, definitely.
right? And that's when I knew I was in the right place. And so coffee and tea and fine dining has always been a part of me throughout all of my career. I've always been a leader in corporate America. And in 2020, I got a call in the height of the pandemic that said, your position has been abolished.
Ooh.
And I said, thank you. I knew it was time.
So you mean Sunday morning coffee is a COVID baby? I call them COVID babies.
Absolutely. It is a
Wonderful. You gave birth.
manifestation. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you gave birth. So now, I mean, you got into this, and it seems as though you're only one of 20 African American coffee roasters in the country. Did you realize either that there were that many or that there were that few? What did that say to you?
Absolutely. Being in the coffee industry, I mean, throughout the 2 decades, I've been traveling the world abroad. And so it's very evident this is a white male dominated industry. Very, very few women and even less women of color. So I knew that going in, which is for me part of the attraction because I always like to make a statement and I always like to go against the riff. So it just aligned perfectly for what I'm doing. And it's really important also that we're represented because coffee has such a huge impact
Yes.
on the Black community, even back to the slave trade. It's so, and our community, we don't realize the impact coffee and tea has had on the slave trade. We were often used as commodity in trading for coffee and tea, and then to cultivate the crops for coffee and tea, which made many, many leaders millionaires.
Yeah, yeah, and hopefully that transition will also benefit you at this point. So, what distinguishes your coffee, say, from the regular name brands that we see on the grocery store, shelves, the Folgers? And my grandmother was a Folgers drinker, so I started drinking Folgers because of her. But but we always kind of our coffee has become almost like wine or what have you. I mean, everybody sort of has their favorite. So what distinguishes yours from the rest?
It's a wonderful question. So most people, especially in the Black community, were familiar with those brands, Maxwell House, Folgers,
Right.
and that's because that's what you saw Mama, Big Mama, great grandma, uncle, grandpa drink. What we didn't realize is that they had always been other options. It's just we often thought they were not affordable. So
Mm-hmm.
we tended to stay away from the other options. The biggest difference with our coffee and the others is we roast our beans at the time you place an order. Whereas most coffee that's on the shelf, we don't know when those beans were roasted. Don't
Mm-hmm.
know when those coffees were ground. And that has a tremendous impact on the experience of your coffee.
How do you do that, Savannah? Is it in because your coffee's available, like for example at Wegmans. I understand you can purchase Sunday morning coffee there, but is it's explain that process, because if it's when it's requested, then what about the coffee that's being offered in the stores or in a
Yes,
Wegmans, which is congratulations to you on that too.
thank
We
you.
cannot think of that as a minor accomplishment for you. So that's great.
Correct. Yeah. So Wegmans orders weekly. So that means
Okay.
you're getting fresh roasted coffee weekly.
Okay.
And that's why, and our coffee bags are in sustainable packaging. So which means that our bags, they have these specialized degassing valves that allows your coffee to maintain freshness for up to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Huge differentiator when we have right now 79% of all Americans make coffee daily from home. So that's important in that we have all of these new home baristas. You want a fresh cup of coffee at home.
And is there a good way? Now I'm getting ready to talk about making coffee from home, because now the coffee makers are so vast, so different compared to, the regular little percolator that Big Mama used to make her coffee in. So does it matter how people prepare your coffee in their homes?
It doesn't matter, but it is on preference because
Okay.
there are so many different brewing methods. You have the traditional coffee brewer that you'll have on your countertop, makes it a wonderful cup of coffee because it's just like a chef. Your coffee is going to be determined on your ingredients. So if you're starting off with the finest ingredients, number one, fresh distilled or filtered water. That is the best tip I can give you next to buying the Sunday morning coffee is to start off with distilled or filtered water, because that water will 1000% impact the quality of your coffee. So the water, the coldness of the water, so if you could put ice cubes in your water, that's what I would also give you a second tip, and then fresh ground beans. So with those three tips, distilled or filtered water, ice cubes in the water, and then fresh whole bean or fresh ground beans, any of your favorite brewing methods, you're going to come out with a wonderful coffee experience.
And also storing your coffee. I mean, I know that there's some people who will, take the coffee, maybe put it in a glass jar. Some may refrigerate it. Some may just keep it on the shelf. What's the best way once you bring that Sunday morning coffee home, to store it as you use it?
So with the other brands, that's often been the recourse that many coffee drinkers have had to take because it's very difficult to maintain that freshness in their bags. In our
Hmm.
bags, we've done the work for you. Our bags, they're
Wonderful.
resealable. So you literally keep them in the bag. They do not require refrigeration. They just can sit them on your countertop or in your pantry.
Now, a lot of people don't like going to some of these coffee retailers because they find that the coffee is too bitter, too strong. But we introduced Sunday Morning Coffee Company as a coffee that delivers a smooth, sultry, and sophisticated taste. So, what describe that? What is that experience like? I'm looking forward. I'm sitting here now saying, "Gee, I wish I had a cup in front of me." But this explain what my experience will be like when I finally do get that cup of Sunday morning coffee.
Well, you are going to have a very, very memorable experience because the first thing you're going to notice is upon holding the bag, you can smell our beans on our grounds through the bag. So that's one. Second, when you open, it's a bouquet. It is a bouquet of fine quality, luxurious premium coffee. That's going to catch you right there. That's really important because as you ground your beans, if you decide to do whole beans, or as you prepare your ground coffees, your whole house, and this is the feedback we get from our customers. Our customers, they email us, they text us, they give us information on our social media, and they tell us their entire kitchens smell like a coffee house. And that's because of the premium quality of the beans. Really good coffee, you should be able to smell pure coffee. And that's why you get the smooth, sultry, and satisfying experience, which gives you the level of sophistication.
Okay, and so what's the source of your beans? Where do you get them from?
So our number one source for our beans is Ethiopia.
Okay.
Ethiopia is the number one exporter of coffee in the world. We also get them from Kenya, Colombia, Honduras, Vietnam, Cameroon, and Puerto Rico.
And so are they blends of all those beans, or is there, let's say, a variety of different coffees that you offer?
Great question. So we have 12 different blends. We
Okay.
offer the traditional blends because we have a lot of corporate customers. So a lot of our corporate customers, they demand French roast. We have a wonderful French roast, which is one of the darkest, robust coffees that you can get between the French roast and the espresso. So those are premium dark coffees, but with no bite. It doesn't grab you by the neck. It's not that bitterness that people often experience with those darker blends. Then we have our medium roast, which is the overwhelming majority of our customers. That's what they fall in, the medium roast. So we are fine Colombians and also our fine Ethiopian coffees. Then we have our breakfast blends. So these are the lighter coffees. It is definitely a nice experience. Really breakfast type coffees that's designed to not be too heavy. So with those 12 blends, we have all three areas, the light, medium, and dark, and then our flavored coffees. I tell you, Denise, we have some of our top sellers. Buttered toast is a top seller for us.
Wow. Okay.
Creamy caramel toffee coffee that is amazing, hot and iced, outstanding. Then we'll have a Miss Emma. Miss Emma is named after my mom. I took care of her for 19 years, and she went on and got her wings. And I said, Mom, I'm going to name a coffee after you. That is another top seller. Hazelnut, amazing aroma, outstanding.
Well,
I'm sorry, one more we have is our Fireside Cozy. These are highly aromatic coffees that customers they want all year long, hot and cold.
so I mean, I could talk to you about coffee all day because, and plus, when I realized, Savannah, that coffee has great nutritional value. It's rich in antioxidants. That is before you put all that sugar and that cream and all that other stuff in it. But I'm a black coffee drinker, so I feel like okay, I'm having a great coffee experience, which is going to get better because of Sunday morning coffee,
That's right.
and I'm taking care of myself. So I mean, that's another sales tip I think that you probably already use that people need to know about.
Absolutely. Coffee has zero to little calories. Black coffee, very little calories. And then you will see a lot of diets have coffee on the diet regimen because it is good for you. It is a natural energizer. And again, we're talking about black coffee, which a lot of our customers drink our coffees black because they're so smooth. So,
Wow.
yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Savannah. Now, where can we get this coffee? I want to know. And we talked about Wegmans, and so and now DC is excited because we finally have a Wegmans in the city. But we know they had several Wegmans around. And where else? How else can we get Sunday morning coffee?
Thank you for that question, Denise. So, being in Wegmans is so significant for us. We are the only Black-owned coffee brand in the DC Wegmans. So, we are really asking all of those who are local to the DC Wegmans, please go into that Wegmans and purchase our Sunday morning coffees because it is significant. As you can imagine, we are shoulder to shoulder with some international, national brands that it will make a tremendous difference if we have a strong impact in that store. So that's the first place I would ask. Second is our direct from our website. You will have your copies within 1 to 2 days. Super easy ordering off our website, which is sundaymorningroast.com. Next, you can find us on Amazon, eBay, Etsy. And also, if you frequent Carolina Kitchen, we are in their restaurant locations. And soon we'll be coming in a couple of other big box retail stores. And so we are very well situated for easily accessibility, and you'll have your coffees within 1 to 2 days.
Well, you have told us a lot. I think that's great. A lot. I mean, I'm already seeing in the chat our biggest fan, Vera Abbott, who also happens to be my mom, says she's going to Wegmans to get hers, and Austin Cooper said he's going, and so we'll be carrying a busload of folks to Wegmans to just to buy coffee. So that'll be great. And I think we don't have time to talk about it today, but I think as a woman-owned business, you have a lot to share. You've done a lot in what? When did you launch this? In what year? 19 or
Literally,
20?
actually 21, August 21. We're coming on 1 year,
This
and we have,
amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing what you've accomplished in a year, and that's a story worth telling as well. So I really congratulate you and thank you for taking time to, to spend a little time with us to talk about, Sunday morning coffee. And anything else you want to add before we go?
Please engage with us on our social media. That is really important because as we are entertaining lots of big retail brands and they are looking at us also through our social media platforms. So we
Okay.
ask you to please go and give us our Google reviews. Please interact with us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok. We have a big presence on TikTok because as we are being courted by Fortune 500 companies, they're looking at every aspect of our organization and they want to take a chance. Right now we're in a good space for Black owned companies and Black women owned companies. We have to make sure that we are tight in all of our areas, so we need that engagement from existing customers and new customers. We are asking you, whichever coffee you drink, we're not asking to replace that. We're asking to make room for Sunday morning in addition to your existing coffee, and then you take the chance.
Well, for what I'm hearing, it won't be hard to replace some of those other coffees with Sunday morning coffee. And I'm looking forward to getting mine this weekend. So I'm going to do that. Savannah, thank you so much. I hope that our viewers will stay in touch, follow you on social media. Like you said, buy that coffee and give us some reviews. We'll do that as well. So we look forward to talking to you some more and, wish you the best. Wish you continued success.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to jump now. She didn't get a chance to finish her statement, but we know that I really appreciated having her on with us. We're going to jump now to Desmond Barnes, my son. Good afternoon, Desmond.
Hello, good afternoon. How you doing?
I am doing so well. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Enjoying the show today and just watching and learning about coffee and things like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I know, I don't know if you're jet lagged. I'm actually doing fine, I think. But we just spent 9 days in Benin, uh, West Africa, with the William O. Lockridge Foundation and some young ambassadors. And the Washington Informer will be writing about this story. I know you're producing a video about that experience, but we thought we'd take a couple minutes really to talk about this trip that we just took time on. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, let's just show people where this is, because a lot of people, you've talked to people, right, Desmond, who said, where is it, right?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of my friends have known more about the city in Nigeria than the country.
Right, right. So Benin is actually a country on the continent of Africa, right next to Togo, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and Niger. So you can see it's a little country. It's a little bit bigger than Togo, but that I don't know what color. I'm gonna call it a peachy color. Salmon. Thank you, Chevy. That is Benin, and that's where we spent 9 days. And so, I just think it was one of the most exciting, warm, welcoming places that I've been to on the continent. I know you've traveled around as well. Tell us what you think. What was the experience like for you?
I think one of the first things that I noticed when I got off the plane and started walking around Benin was how clean it was out there. It was like the streets were very clean. There wasn't a lot of pollution. Um, a lot of the people that I saw were it's a very fashion forward country, I think. I don't know if fashion forward is the word, but it's very stylish country, should I say. Like a lot of people have very, colorful outfits on, tops matching the bottoms. There's a lot of motorcycles used for transportation and things like that. But it was a very welcoming country, and it was definitely a great experience to be there. I didn't know what to expect, so it was yeah.
You worked with I think it was five of the young ambassadors from the William O. Lockridge Foundation, and we'll have them on sometime next week or in the coming weeks to talk about their experience. But you all produced a song, and you want to talk about why you did it and what the song was about and how you were able to produce that with the help of some of the French-speaking Beninois students.
Well, the song was called Jet Setting to Benin. The reason that we did it is one, so that just some of the youth could see how much they are similar, you know, how they can connect through music, and also so that they can see that there, you know, a lot of opportunities through music outside of their local network, you know, so that they can see more of the world and understand the world. But going out there and just experiencing in the studio, the French speaking kids, also getting on the song with them, seeing how they kind of competed against each other to you know, try to get the best parts of the song, but it all came together as one solid project. It was just really cool to give them that experience, and it was a lot of their first time recording music, so they were a little shy in the beginning, but once we got them in the studio and they started to interact with each other, it became like a very fun project for all of them. So we shot some content out there, as you know, and we're going to edit that up and hopefully give them like a nice music video as well to go with it. And hopefully they'll be able to hear themselves on the radio soon.
That'll be nice. I mean, you talked about, I forgot to mention when I introduced you that I call you Desmond, but your artistic name is DB Bantino. Of course, it became everything else when we were in Benin, but and so, you know, going into the studio and helping to produce that song, really, I got a chance to see you work. And the studio itself, the young man that was helping with the production, you want to tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, his name was Morgan. And one of the interesting things, like when you talk to a lot of people out here, ask them what their goals are in music, some of them might say something like, you know, to sell out the biggest arenas or to, you know, sell the most albums that, you know, out of everyone in the country. But his biggest dream was just to share the stage with his father, who's also a musician. So it just kind of shows like how sometimes uh, we might have different values. But it was good for them to hear that as well too, because I think family is very important, and he definitely showed that, and that being one of the things he looks forward to doing in his career.
Benin is a French-speaking country, and there were some challenges we had sometimes in communicating. I don't speak French, and when they would say they don't speak English, they would say their English was very small.
Mhm.
But you seem to be able to communicate with folks despite the language barriers. How did you manage that?
I think it's just like an energy that you're supposed to bring, and people can kind of feed off of that before you even say anything to somebody. Sometimes they can tell what type of energy you're bringing, and that's all I wanted to do was just look at people in a positive light, and I think that they kind of just reciprocated the same thing to myself. So that's other than that, I didn't know what a lot of people were saying to me, and I didn't know how to say certain things back to them. But just you know, just giving them the respect that I think that everyone deserves kind of helped me to network with people out there.
What do you think is going to be your most memorable experience from that trip? Because you really said you enjoyed it. I know I did. I totally enjoyed it. I would go back to Benin in a minute.
Mhm.
And I don't feel that way about every country that I visited, but this one I did. It just felt special. But what was most memorable to you? And Austin Cooper says your cool hat. I'm, I meant to post that picture, but go ahead.
Oh, I think one of the most memorable things was just seeing how people use the resources that the earth provides to kind of, you know, create a sustainable lifestyle instead of always thinking that you need to rely on like, you know, this company for food or this place for shelter or something like that. Like you can actually make everything that we need, we already have. And, you know, sometimes we get blindsided by that out here because there's just so much advertising of things just making us think that we need more and more. So learning, that's one thing I learned over there is that we can actually get a lot from a little.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Well, I'm not going to hold you. I just wanted to, let us share with folks a little bit about that experience. They're still probably in the dark. They haven't seen our photos, our pictures of all the things that we did and saw. Is there one thing that you did though that you thought was like, wow, I got to tell people about this?
Meeting with two kings while we were out there. I've never met anyone, that moves like a king. Like even the president, the political figures that we see here, they don't move like a king in Benin. So that's something that I think we'll be able to explain a little bit more through like the pictures and videos once those come out. But those were definitely one of my most memorable moments, was just even being in the presence of someone that they call a king. So
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing I'll just say, the statue, which we brought little replicas home of the Unity Cup. There's a story that, or question, I guess, is that if you have a bowl that has a lot of holes in it, how do you, and you want to pour a substance into it, like that great Sunday morning coffee, how do you keep it, from wasting, from pouring out through the hole? So the Unity Cup actually is a cup, and you've got hands around it. And if everybody put their fingers in the hole, then there's something there for everyone. But everybody has to, to do that, has to cooperate with each other to close up those holes, so that we don't lose, what, and I don't know if I'm telling the story right, but I just love that concept of unity. And so, there's so much more we can share. So I just wanted to thank you for being with us for a few minutes.
Oh, no, thank you for inviting me on and talking about it. And I think everyone should just be very excited about seeing these photos and videos that we have, because we have a great story to tell from the experience we had.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. Have a great day. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All righty. So yes, we've got, I told Sherry we could have shown some pictures, and we will do that in an upcoming show after we get it all put together. I think I've got about, maybe about 1,000. Desmond has 1,000. All of us have photographs. But it was really a great trip. And if you've gone to an interesting place this summer, a lot of us are just beginning to get out and travel. If you've gone someplace that you think is interesting, that you think would be a good place for others to go, share that information with us. You can do so at news@washingtoninformer.com. Again, that's news, N-E-W-S, right, with the S, thanks, Chevry, at washingtoninformer.com. Because we certainly would like to know what your summer vacation was like, if you've gotten a chance to get away and you want to share. This is a place where folks need to go. And we'll be doing the same with our trip as well. So we're going to move on now for our reporters wrap up. I want to bring on Jamila Bay, Sam Collins, Brenda Seiler, and James Wright. Welcome to WIN TV, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you. And thank you, Jamila, for pitching in last week. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
So I'm going to go around the room here. I'm going to start with you, Brenda, because this is not a 1-1-1, but we do want to highlight a couple stories that you've been working on. And one was this active shooter training, Brenda, that you attended this week. Really, really relevant because of all of the mass shootings that we've experienced. But tell me what you saw and experienced and learned.
Yes, and it's great to be here this afternoon. I attended the district government session on active shooter preparedness. And what this was, it was a one-day event in two parts, where in the morning, churches, faith-based organizations attended. In the afternoon was mostly those organizations that would come under the Office of Nightlife and Culture. The main thing that we wanted to get across in that session was, how do you prepare? Are venues prepared for an active shooter situation? Are churches prepared? I cover for the Washington Informer Arts and Entertainment. So a lot of the places that I cover, restaurants, performance venues, museums, art galleries, that comes under that space. A poll, very simple poll, was taken by raising hands as to what venues in the afternoon session for nightlife and culture were prepared. Only 3 people out of a room of about 100 people.
Wow.
Also, this is the first time that the Office of the Mayor put this together as an interagency event. DC Homeland Security, Metropolitan Police Department, Serve DC, under which the Office of Religious Affairs is housed, and also the Office of Nightlife and Culture are housed. And you have to think about a few things. For example, the best takeaway tip when you walk into a space, when you walk into a room, look around, find the exits, know where the exits are. As reporters, we're used to going in maybe after a crisis or a tragedy has occurred. Are we prepared to go in as a reporter just to be there and know how to get out, know how to duck? And in particular, when I'm talking about ducking, whether it's in a church under the pews or under a table, um, what about those that may have challenges in moving, disabilities? And it's not just walking, or for my particular situation, I've had back surgery twice in the past 18 months. So jumping down on the floor and getting under something is going to be a little bit difficult. Shout out to my therapist at Jeter Rehabilitation. They're watching now. They've been helping me to get better. But what about if you're accompanying somebody or that person has a disability? It's all about sight. It can also be about your hearing. All of those things that get in the way of you being able to act quickly and responsibly. And I really wanted to share with our roundtable here, as reporters, watch what you're doing in terms of where you're going. Make sure you're looking around the room. You notice the exits. And I asked on my way out, are you going to offer this to other groups? And I said, what about the reporters that are coming here today to cover you? What tips are you going to leave with them? So let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's really, so is
the article is posted on WashingtonInformer.com. It was very eye-opening for me, especially with the area that I cover for the Informer.
So, well, in addition, and we're glad that we can put that out through the Informer, is there also a website, or will we be posting some of those tips so that people can follow up and actually have it as a resource? Is the district government doing that, or will we, will the Informer be doing that?
People should go to the DC government's Homeland Security site. That's your primary resource. But also, they shared another tip with us. You can now text 50911 versus using your phone. And you don't want your phone to ring. You want your phone on silent. You don't want anyone to know that you're talking to somebody. You can actually text 50911 and you'll get a quick response, and you can type in whatever you want to type. This is where I am, blah, blah, blah.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, that's good news. That's great. Very, very helpful news too. Jamil, I'm going to jump to you really quickly because the news keeps, we keep getting news or more news about what's going on with the Brittany Griner, our basketball player that's been arrested out there in Russia. Biden has finally offered someone to exchange to get Brittany home. What's that all about? What do you what's happening with that? Can you unmute yourself, please? Because we can't hear you.
Okay, I think I managed the tech. Forgive me. Always is a pleasure to be here. I can't wait to hear more about Benin. In terms of Sister Griner, however, we are dealing with a state, a foreign state that we know we have not had the easiest time with. We need to be measured in our expectations. Russia is playing hardball. So just the backstory, she, this Olympian, this revered basketball star. She's not just beloved here in the US. She's been playing in Russia for many years. They love her over there. Russia manages to cure greater than a 90% conviction rate when they lock someone up. So for people go, well, she pleaded guilty. She shouldn't have had the vape cartridges. She had such a small amount. It's arguable that she may not have even realized that she had. We don't know. The trading part of this is a diplomatic process that can go in the links of that chain, any single link can derail the process. We need to not expect that this is going to go quickly and easily. If so, hallelujah. But Russia's playing hardball, and there are things that we cannot know that are happening behind the scenes. So I am, my background, I spent some times working in a Russian news organization, and my advice, particularly if you do not speak Russian, if you cannot read Cyrillic, listen, take everything with a grain of salt. Recognize that there are diplomatic and there are cultural issues at play that we do not know about, that we cannot know about because it can interfere with the process. The fact that she's being,
we've been hearing that. I mean, that's one reason why they said that her wife, was really sort of being silent for a while, and now she's not. There's a lot of chatter going on, as particularly after she pled guilty, was sentenced to I think up to 10 years. There's a lot of chatter going on out there. So I mean, how do you, when you say be quiet and listen, that's not happening.
Well, we need to recognize too that had she not pleaded guilty, she would have, in essence, admitted and would not have been able to defend herself. This is not the U.S. court system at all. A guilty plea in Russia is just to say, okay, fine, I did it. Let's get to the next step. If you do not admit that you did it, you can't get to the next step, which means you stay locked up until they decide. The chatter that we are hearing is chatter that is okay to release to U.S. media. Please be aware that there is always behind the scenes that we do not know. The fact that we're dealing with an exchange for a known arms dealer, Victor Boot, what potentially could the states, plural, Russia and the US, not want the other country to know? And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with things that go far beyond an Olympian and the sport of basketball. I trust very little professionally. I trust very little about what we're being told. We're being told what is palatable. Doesn't mean that an exchange isn't going to happen. Doesn't mean that Brittany Griner will not return to the U.S. soil. It just means that we need to be measured and recognize that what we are hearing is what we are allowed to hear.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on or segue over to James right now, because you did a couple stories this week. I was surprised to hear that. I wasn't surprised about the rats in DC, because that's been an ongoing story in the District of Columbia. We've been dealing with rats for as long as I can remember. But also, the story about the police and Bowser and the union actually reaching an agreement, and that Clarence Thomas has decided that he's going to leave GW as a teacher there, professor. I don't know if that was his own decision, or was he gracefully offered an opportunity to to exit. But anyway, catch us up on the stories you've done.
Well, let me start with what you talked about in terms of, I'm going to end with the rats, but let me start with Bowser, the Bowser administration negotiating with the police union. And as I say this, I'm looking at Sam with a smirk. And then what happens is that the administration did come to terms with the police union in terms of getting retroactive pay for about 2 years back and about 1 year forward. And basically they're going to get about a 4% raise, and they're going to set up a committee where they're going to talk about these things in terms of compensation for the future. Let me just say this. I'm going to use the argument that people used to, the Vincent Orange argument, I call. I mean, I think this is great that police officers are getting raises, but it only affects 16% of the people, because 16% of DC police officers live in the city. The other 84% live everywhere else. So this is going to benefit other people. And same thing that Vincent Orange used to say about paid leave. You know, it doesn't benefit DC residents, it benefits other people. So that's something that the mayor and the administration, the mayor and the police union have to work out later on. In terms of the Clarence Thomas, Clarence Thomas will not be teaching in the fall. He was supposed to co-teach a class on constitutional law. I wonder if he took that course at Yale. And then and as a result, the students protested because of his concurring opinion in Roe versus Wade, which basically gutted a woman's constitutional right to an abortion in this country. And so basically the answer to your question is, I don't know, but I think, frankly, you know, he did the right thing by stepping aside, and maybe he should step aside permanently. I don't know. That's up to him and the university, but it does show that student activism does have an impact. Oh, and by the way, with Clarence Thomas, over 1 million people have signed a petition asking that he be impeached.
Wow. Okay. And was that initiated here, or who's initiating that petition?
I think that's by move.org, and it's a national
Okay.
that petition. And the last one you talked about was rats.
Yes.
You were right, Denise. DC has had a rat problem since 1745. And when they came over here on ships that were from Mongolia, the most common rat is the brown rat, and then which is 90%, and 10% of the are black rats. The key that Dr. Bobby Corrigan, who taught this course to some folks, Department of Health employees and interested parties, was to keep a clean trash can.
Mm.
You can live in squalor, you can be poor, but you can keep a clean trash can and contain your trash. If you have a dog or a cat, it's not going to act as a deterrent, because what are the mice and the rats looking for? They're looking for what we are looking for, food. And so that's what they pursue. And one last thing on this. Remember, rats in some form have been around for millions of years. We as human beings have only been around, let's say, about hundreds of thousands of years.
Interesting, James. But it goes back to what Desmond raised also about, you know, the country that we visited and how clean it was. And, you know, we have a big litter problem in DC too, which I think also contributes to that. But then also it's where we're located. We're in the best place where rats could live, close to the water. We feed them with all of our stuff that we throw down. So we are responsible for the rat problem that we have. So I'm glad that you covered that. Sam, I want to come to you next because, there's a big story, and maybe you can give us the background on Dr. Mutulu Shakur, what's happening there, and also the news about the resignation of the president of UDC. That's been out for a minute, but maybe you can catch us up on that and why the president has decided to step down at this time, and how they feel about it.
No problem. We can start with Dr. Mutulu Shakur. Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who is an acupuncturist and an elder in the Black Liberation Movement of the 1970s, and who was also Tupac Shakur's stepfather. Doctors said recently that he has about 6 months to live. He is battling stage 3 bone marrow cancer. And what has been happening over the past couple of years is that advocates have tried various means to secure his compassionate release.
Now, release from where? Let's give it a little bit of background.
Released from federal prison in Kentucky. In 1986, he was convicted of crimes related to a robbery of an armed bank truck that resulted in the death of 2 officers. His white co-defendants have since been released after they served their sentence, but Dr. Mutulu Shakur is still in prison. That is now all that there is to his legacy. While he was a free man in the 1970s, he helped bring acupuncture to the United States, and it was crucial in the treatment of drug abuse in New York City and in other parts of the United States. Many people who undergone his treatments have gone on to learn about acupuncture and use it on patients of their own. So when Dr. Mutulu Shakur and his attorneys applied for compassionate release and applied for parole, mind you, parole he applied for about 9 times and he was denied. But when he applied for compassionate release, the judge overseeing this case, who also happened to be the same judge that sentenced him, said that Dr. Shakur was not sick enough. He did not reach the threshold of sickness in order to be released. So right now at this point, we have advocates that include attorney Nkechi Taifa, Reverend Graylan Hagler, Reverend Carroll out of Newark, Delaware, and several others, even police officers, correction officer associations. They have signed petitions and letters demanding that the Justice Department and other appropriate bodies look into this and secure the compassionate release of Dr. Shakur, because he meets the standards for compassionate release, having served a considerable amount of his sentence, being sick, and being over the age of 65.
And who are they appealing to, Sam? Who has the authority to release him? Is it the Federal Bureau of Prisons?
Yes, the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So we're talking the Parole Board and the Justice Department. As a matter of fact, the press conference and the handing of the letter, or the attempt to hand the letter, was done not this past Wednesday, but the Wednesday before.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. And if people are interested in signing that petition, how do they access it?
They would have to reach out to the Malcolm X grassroots movement. They can also reach out to attorney Nkechi Taifa. And those are pretty much two of the best sources.
Great. Okay. So we got and you noted that in your story, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Right. Okay. We've got just a couple minutes left. Let's talk about the resignation of President Mason from UDC.
Oh, President Mason. Yes, President Mason. Next year will mark 8 years since he started at UDC. That's the end of his contract, and that's when he has decided he will step down. He announced this last week. Under his leadership, UDC has attracted lots of money in terms of financial aid and money that would go into the renovation of the Van Ness campus, that would go into the renovation and the expansion of the community college and other programs, including one that will be located across the street from the Informer at the Old Democracy Prep. In addition to that, UDC is going to go into Anacostia High School, giving students there access to dual enrollment courses, or courses that at the very least will expose them to a college education. This was done at a time, let's go back to 2014. So in 2014, UDC was facing budget issues, and President Mason has a finance background. He was a CFO at another university, so he was very cognizant and very meticulous about how to balance the budget, and he worked with the DC government in doing so. And COVID funds also helped as well in doing that, and they also tapped into the reserves, which was a last-minute strategy. But the main course was pretty much cutting the offerings at one point, and then balancing the budget and attracting more money so that UDC could expand on some programs and get to a point where it is more attractive, not only in the eyes of people around the country and around the world, but DC residents. Because as Dr. Mason told me, President Mason rather, as he told me, UDC to some DC residents has garnered a reputation for being sort of like the last choice among colleges. But these days, especially with scholarships geared toward valedictorians, high school valedictorians, UDC is becoming more of an attraction. And we're looking at a time when people are very concerned about financial aid and the cost of college. With UDC building dorms, it can become even more of an attractive option for DC residents and any potential college student at that.
Well, one thing we can say about UDC over the years, whenever it got ink in any of the newspapers, it was always something negative. That hasn't been the case since Dr. Mason has been there. And I'm really glad that you've been able to track, his successes over the last couple of years. We just hope that continues. Is there any conversation about who his successor might be?
Not at this point. The Board of Trustees is planning to launch an outreach committee and they want to be very inclusive in who is a part of that conversation. There will be more information to come about that.
So before we close, thank you very much, Sam. Before we close, I'm just going to go around the table or the screen, I'll call it that, just to find out. You just tell our viewers one story that you are going to be working on for next week. Make it brief because we're over time. But Brenda, I'm going to start with you. What's coming up? You're muted. Unmute yourself, Brenda. Sam, Jamila, I'll start with you. What are you doing on the web?
Okay. I've talked to a couple parents from Howard. Their juniors and seniors don't have housing. School starts on the 22nd.
Interesting. Okay. Brenda, you back?
Yeah, sorry, it wouldn't work. Whatever. The Color Purple musical is opening at Signature Theater. And the lead is Nova Payton. She was the lead in Grace, the musical that was composed, written by Nolan Williams Jr. It was at the Ford's Theater. We all know what a fabulous vocalist she is. And I'm going to be interviewing her next week.
Wonderful, wonderful. James, what do you have cooking?
The June primary the primaries ended on June the 21st, and you still have signs around the city about people running for office, and those signs should have been taken down a few weeks ago. So I'm going to find out what's going on and what can be done.
What's the law on that? Isn't there a law that requires that they're down? And if they're not, are they fined? I guess we'll read that in the story, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and you're right on both accounts.
Okay, thanks. Sam, what you got?
Preschool and kindergarten enrollment in DC public and public charter schools has been declining over the last few years. In this upcoming school year, we'll see students, young people in pre-K and kindergarten who were born at that point when the birth rate in DC was declining. So I'm looking at what does the declining enrollment mean for the school budgets, and what does it mean for future planning around school boundaries?
Wow. Okay. Sounds good. So this is why you need to read the Washington Informer, folks. And if you can't pick up a copy online, make sure you read at a newsstand. Make sure you read us online. Remember that name: Brenda Seiler, Sam P.K. Collins, Jamila Bay, James Wright, and so many others on our staff who are doing a wonderful job of doing what we do, keeping you informed. Chevy, you have something you wanted me to share? No. Okay. Okay. All right, you all. Thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll let you get to work.
Until next time.
All righty. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Good close, Jamila. Until next time, for all those who are watching, thanks for watching WIN TV. This is Denise Rolark Barnes saying so long. Look forward to seeing you next Friday, same time, right here on your Facebook, YouTube channels. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
When it was not there. But your mother had a